Oh, Disney produced some of the greatest movies that has shaped generations from then and years to come. But on April 2nd, 2004, Walt Disney Studios that has made incredible movies such as Aladdin, Atlantis Lost Empire, and so much more released one of the most underrated movies of all time, a Western classic, if you will, Home on the Range.
Are you ready for a side-splitting, finger-snapping hoedown?
Yeah, pretty much. Why?
It's got good guys, you move, bad guys, wide open spaces, and the greatest hero the West has ever known, the Dairy Cow.
This movie is near and dear to my heart because this movie is basically forgotten. Nobody knows or even remembers this movie. The only time people mention this movie is whenever they just talk about like the overall scope of Walt Disney animated features. And even then it goes on deaf ears because people care about all the other pictures that they've made. But I have a obsession, if you will, a deep love for this movie. Not because of the movie itself. The movie's pretty mid, which I will get into, but it's when and how this movie was made and taken that's just so weird to me. Because this came out in 2004, and being the fact that this released on April 2nd, do you know what movie released the month after this? Shrek 2, which nearly grossed $1 billion and was at the height of its popularity. And alongside that came out Incredibles and SpongeBob the movie and, to a lesser extent, Shark Tale. If that doesn't show you a packed year of animated movies, I don't know what will. And the fact that this is animated is also a detriment to this movie. Now, I know whenever you're thinking about this is animated, what I mean is this is 2D. Because the sad thing is with 2D in general is that whenever CGI was coming out with movies like Toy Story and DreamWorks coming out with Shrek and all those new CGI movies, 2D films were seen as an inferior or less than means of telling stories with animation. And with that, all of their features basically kind of just were like seen as less than, and their box office showed this. While movies like Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis, Lost Empire, or Treasure Planet became beloved classics, this movie kind of just went on deaf ears. And yeah, sure, movies like Treasure Planet basically bombed at the box office, but they now have garnered a wide appeal and acclaim and love from those people that saw them and for its story in general. But this movie is just nothing. Crickets is just like radio silence, which is so odd to me, because being the fact that this is whenever 2D was being phased out, this feels like the most 2D type of movie that Disney could have made. This seems like their swan song, if you will, to their animation division in 2D in general. Now, sure, this wasn't the last 2D movie that Walt Disney Studios would make for their feature theatrical films. They also had their last two movies being Princess and the Frog and Winnie the Pooh, and we all know Princess and the Frog went on to be another widely acclaimed, beloved movie. Heck, it even did somewhat decent at the box office for a year that had movies like Up and Monsters vs. Aliens. But what also is striking to me is the fact that this came out in 2004, not just because of the whole, CGI rise thing, but because this is whenever Disney was in a weird place. And whatever I mean by that, people say that now Disney's in a rut right now. They've basically kind of fallen off, and I will admit they kind of have to an extent. But what people don't realize is that the people that are growing up with Disney in the 2010s now think that Disney's mid and that they've fallen off, think that this is like their lowest point. I don't think they really realize how bad the 2000s was for Disney. Like, they should know, like, the movies that they made the movies they made in the 2000s were, like, really either financially unsuccessful or, like, really bad. Like, yeah, sure, you had, like, a few hits, like, Pirates of the Caribbean, Remember the Titans, but other than that, they were in, like, a whole mess. Like, you think about this, like, they didn't own Pixar until 2006, they didn't own Marvel until 2009, and they didn't even buy Star Wars until 2012, and that's whenever the 2010s was, like, their stride. But here, this was, like, they didn't know what to do. Like, they didn't even have Bob Iger, who now kind of, But to actually address this movie, Home on the Range is such a weird film to me because not only is it the most simplistic movie ever, its concept alone is just very generic. Like, I kid you not, I literally went through the archives for this movie. I went in deep. I literally found old, like, 2004 Disney Channel promos for this. Like, that's how deep it went. I even went to the production of, like, the making of this movie.
Save it. We've got plenty of work to do without you yapping.
Surfers, it's time to go behind the scenes of the latest Disney movies. I'm at the premiere of Disney's new movie, Home on the Range, standing on the red carpet. So what's Buck's personality like?
Oh, he's insanely energetic. Constantly trying to prove himself.
I reckon you'd want a fast horse, huh?
So, before we get into the actual movie, I just want to go into the background for this. So, with this movie to start out, this movie was kind of like Emperor's New Groove, to where it started out to have like this like deep, you know, like dramatic storytelling like the 90s had. But going to the 2000s, Disney wanted to have a more lighter feel, which I can understand for Disney, because after movies like Hunchback of Notre Dame, you kind of think, oh wait, this is a little bit too dark, you know what I mean? And that's why Emperor's New Groove was the comedy that it was, because that basically turned into that.
Oh, right, the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen specially to kill Cusco, Cusco's poison. Fat poison?
Yes, fat poison.
And Home on the Range got the same treatment, but unlike Emperor's New Groove, it's not like that funny or creative of a concept. Originally, the movie was called Sweating Bullets, which was about like a ghost town with literal ghosts, which is a cool concept. But, you know, whenever Disney was like, we gotta make this more goofy, more, you know, family friendly, they kind of just pivoted and just kind of focused on like the cow characters. And that's what we had. That's how we basically got this movie. And I mean, like, I'd rather have gone the ghost town concept than this, you know? But it's whatever. Basically, in the movie, I'm just gonna go by a plot description because this movie basically has no plot, is there's a cow rustler named Alameda Slim, which, by the way, the best villain in Disney history, by the way. Basically, the cows, they find out that the farm is being closed down, and they have to go on a bounty hunting quest to go capture the bounty hunter. And that's basically the movie. This movie has no plot. Like, if you're expecting some like deep theme or like some message, that's not it. This movie basically, it kind of like harkens back to classic Looney Tunes cartoons, to where it's not about the story or the characters, it's just about like the jokes and like the comedic bits. And I mean, like, they're kind of there, but like not really, because the movie's kind of like clashing in tone, because one moment they want you to care about our characters, and you think about it, you go like, when are we supposed to care about our characters? Because the main plot is them trying to save their farm, and I mean, like, we didn't spend any time on the farm, and like you're supposed to feel sad for the characters, and I'm like, what time did we spend with you to feel bad? Like, basically the main character in the movie, Maggie, is like supposed to be like a, you know, protagonist, the person we're supposed to like, but she's basically an asshole. She's like a brash, headstrong, you know, person with attitude, and I'm like, what's the appeal here? You know, like, we find out that, you know, she was sold off because, you know, her farm got shut down. She has to move to a new farm that's gonna get shut down. And I mean, like, we don't get any real time to feel bad for her. You know, she goes like, don't worry guys, my farm's gone, I want revenge. And I'm like, why do I care? And then we have the other two main cows being Mrs. Calloway and Grace. And I mean, like, Grace is just an airhead, and that's really the joke.
I'm Mrs. Calloway.
Hi.
And this is Grace.
Hi.
No applause and trophies here.
Then there's Mrs. Calloway, who's basically just like your standard British female stereotype, and I'm like, okay. Like, the real fun of this movie comes from the two other characters being Buck the horse and Alameda Slim. I really like Buck. Like, I unironically think he's such like the coolest character, because like he thinks he's like the coolest horse of all time, and he's such like a hyperactive piece of shit. It's just so funny. And it's like, he's also an asshole too, because he makes fun of the cows and says, your farm's getting closed down. And I'm like, who am I supposed to root for? And because he's basically like the secondary main character, so like I can't root for, you know, the three cows, because one's an asshole and the other two have no character. And then we have Buck, who's, you know, trying to prove himself, but he's also an asshole, so I can't root for him. Like, the best scene that shows this is whenever, like, you know, Alameda Slim first appears and gets away, and then Maggie goes like, "Ah, Buck, yeah, you're an idiot," and he goes like, "You know what, I don't need your help, I could do this on my own." And I'm like, who am I supposed to root for in this? You know, it doesn't make sense at all. It's like honestly stupid.
Well, if it isn't three maids a milking. You girls, little far from home, aren't ya?
Maggie, Grace, leave that poor animal alone.
I wouldn't help you bossy bovines if my life depended on it!
You see, that's just what I'm talking about.
Like, these characters don't change. They basically stay the same. All they do is just go on a fun, wacky adventure, which is fine, but like, I could tell why this movie isn't remembered, because there's no deeper message. There's nothing except for just mindless entertainment, which is kind of why I also like this movie. It's because it's just so unapologetically, like, bullshit. I kind of just enjoy it. I just love, like, the funny action bits and, like, the animation. And which, speaking of animation, I have to get into Alameda Slim. He has one of the greatest animated sequences I've ever seen in my life. I am not joking. Like, he, as a villain, is, like, so cool. I can't even describe how cool he is. And his, like, introduction with the Yodel Lady, Yodel, whatever the heck, I can't even pronounce the name of the song, is just so cool. He just pops in and, like, the colors and the visuals just get so bright and neon. It's honestly, like, visually, like, stunning to me, honestly. He's just, like, such a cartoon villain. It's hard to not enjoy him, because I love how he's just, like, wants revenge for, like, the most minor reason. He goes like, "These people made fun of me for yodeling, so I'm just gonna take all of their land and get revenge on them." I even love how his costume, like his disguise, quote unquote, is just like the most, like, "I know who you are" disguise. Like, he literally just has glasses and a hat. That's really about it. It's like, that's like the best you can do. And I love how his fake name is Y Yodel for Yodel. It's like so stupid. Like, I love the fact that it's stupid. And speaking of other villains, I love the secret reveal, spoilers for a movie that's literally 20 years old. I love how Rico has turned out to be the twist villain, which, speaking of, I love how I haven't followed up my twist villains video. Jesus. What would that come out, like a year ago? I really need to follow that up. But speaking of that, with Alameda Slim and the villains in general, I think they're kind of like the highlight of the movie, because once Alameda Slim shows up, the movie kind of picks up steam. Because I'm not gonna lie, like, I kind of just, like, tune out for, like, the opening of the movie, like, until, like, the halfway mark, because the movie is, like, I gotta be honest, it's actually kind of boring. Like, it's not funny, it's not clever, it's, like, literally just, like, background noise. But once Alameda Slim shows up, that's when the actual fun begins. And, like, even at the end, we pick up steam because we have cameos from Steve Buscemi and Patrick Warburton, who's like, I don't even know why they're here, but hell, I'm glad that they are.
Oh, good. I'm not too late. Sorry. Still staking out your quarry, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Why?
In general, I think with this movie, I just, like, really appreciate what this is, because it kind of just, like, it's like a time capsule for what Disney was at the time. It's in a weird spot to where it doesn't know what it wants to be, but it's just unapologetically just doing what it wants to do at the same time. Because I just love the visuals that the movie has. It's just, like, so bright and colorful, yet that it's something you don't see nowadays. I love that it's so, like, comedic with its slapstick nature. It just feels like an actual, like, Looney Tunes cartoon, to where, like there's no logic, reason, or rhyme to it. It's just doing whatever it wants. And yeah, sure, it's very dull at times. There's no character development. There's nothing to latch on to. But god damn it, I just have a fun time with this. I love combing through the archives of, like, footage of this, seeing, like, what it was gonna be, and just going through in general, just, like, what Disney was at this time. Because while other people may have forgotten this movie, I know for sure I'm a Western boy that will, I'm not even from the West, but I will be, in spirit, a Wild West boy that's home on the range, because Cowboy, you're really off the creek. It would make sense if you actually watched the movie, because that's part of the lyrics for one of the songs. Yeesh. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and if this movie has, you know, made you think about watching this movie, please do, because while it's not the greatest, it definitely is a fun watch. Well, yeah, that's about it. I'm Blacked Out Reviews. I reviewed it, so you can hopefully watch this Western classic.